Imagine this experiment. We travel back 300,000 years, somewhere on the African continent, and pick up a newborn Homo sapiens baby girl. We bring her to the present day. We give her a name, Ada. Then we place her in an ordinary modern family, with baby formula, school, Wi-Fi, and a lot of love. Now fast forward 18 years. What kind of person would Ada become? Would she be your college roommate, casually discussing existentialism at midnight? Or would she be a permanent outsider, someone who could never truly understand our world? And let's push the question even further. If Ada entered the Olympics, would she sweep every gold medal? To answer that, we have to start at the beginning, infancy. As a baby, Ada coos in her crib. At around 4 months, she follows her foster mother's facial expressions. At 6 months, she laughs for the first time. Around her first birthday, she says her first meaningful word. In other words, her early milestones would probably look surprisingly normal. Why? Because the core architecture inside her skull already belongs to Homo sapiens. Fossils from Jebel Irhoud in Morocco suggest that early Homo sapiens already had brain sizes within the range of modern humans. And genes related to speech development, such as FOXP2, appeared even earlier in human evolution. Ada is not born carrying a specific language. She does not arrive speaking some ancient tongue. What she needs is much simpler. She needs people to talk to her. But while language may develop smoothly, the first real difference appears in her body. Not long after weaning, her foster mother notices a problem. Ada does not respond well to regular milk formula. She seems uncomfortable. Eventually, they switch her to a lactose-free alternative, and she settles down. The reason is buried deep in her genes. Lactase persistence, the ability to keep digesting lactose after infancy, only became common in some human populations within the last few thousand years. A Homo sapiens baby from 300,000 years ago would almost certainly be lactose intolerant. Then Ada reaches preschool age. And most of the time, she looks just like any other child. At around 3, she points at an airplane in the sky and asks, why? At 4, she invents a very bad excuse for breaking a cup. That childish little lie is not a defect. It is actually a sign that her theory of mind is developing normally. She can imagine what another person knows and what they do not know. In kindergarten, she fights over toys. Then, with a teacher's help, she slowly learns to take turns and share. So far, nothing about her seems alien. But outdoors, one thing begins to stand out. Ada does not seem to get tired as quickly. Other children run around for 10 minutes and collapse on the grass, panting. Ada keeps going, lap after lap, as if her body has a slightly different cooling system. And in a way, it does. One of the signature adaptations of Homo sapiens in Africa was endurance under heat. Humans have unusually developed sweat glands. We have relatively sparse body hair, and an upright posture reduces the amount of direct sunlight hitting the body. Together, these traits help create an excellent system for heat regulation and long-distance movement. By 300,000 years ago, this system was already in place. In a modern playground, that may look like a girl who can keep running longer than everyone else. But it is not a superpower, and it does not automatically make her an Olympic champion. Sprinting and weightlifting depend heavily on muscle fiber type, genetics, and specialized training. Those abilities do not map neatly onto ancient survival needs. In those events, Ada might be just as average as any randomly chosen child. But in long-distance events, especially in heat, she may have a slightly higher starting point, if someone trains her. At the same time, another pattern appears: food. Ada seems unusually drawn to sweets and fried foods. Not just interested, more intense, harder to satisfy. Her foster parents may think it is just her personal taste, but the deeper reason may be metabolism. 300,000 years ago, food supply was unstable. There was no supermarket, no pantry, no reliable storage system. People who stored energy efficiently and tolerated hunger better had an advantage. Ada may carry a genetic tendency toward a more thrifty metabolism. That would make high-calorie food especially tempting. The problem is that this craving evolved for a world where honey and bone marrow were rare treasures. Now it has been dropped into a world where a bag of snacks can be opened in 3 seconds. By puberty, Ada may struggle more than her classmates with weight fluctuations. Around the same time, another ancient mismatch appears in her mouth. Her wisdom teeth begin to come in. But there is not enough room. She needs orthodontic help. Why? After the agricultural revolution, human diets became softer and more processed. Chewing forces decreased, jaws became smaller, but the number of teeth did not change as quickly. In the wide jaw of an ancient Homo sapiens, those wisdom teeth may not have been a problem at all. Once Ada enters school, people begin to wonder about her personality and grades. Some might assume that an ancient human bloodline would make her more aggressive, more impulsive, or more violent, but that is a lazy assumption. Aggression is not encoded by one simple anger gene, and Homo sapiens did not survive by brute force alone. Our species depended on cooperation, communication, and long-term planning. A person who solved every conflict with violence would have struggled even in a prehistoric group. Ada grows up in a stable, loving family. Her parents teach her to recognize and express emotions. School teaches her rules, empathy, and cooperation. Her personality is shaped by that environment. The real difference may be more subtle. When something unexpected happens, Ada's body may react a little faster. A classroom door suddenly blows open. Other students keep writing. Ada looks up first. Her shoulders tense before everyone else's. This is not anger. It is not violence. It is more like a slightly more sensitive stress threshold. In daily life, she is still a normal teenager. She worries about friendships. She worries about grades. She overthinks how quickly someone replies to her message. Academically, Ada is not necessarily the top student. She is not necessarily behind either. But over time, teachers notice a pattern. She has a strong intuition for spatial relationships and visual patterns. In geometry, she may not solve every problem step by step. Sometimes she just sees it. In geography, she almost never gets lost on a map. In biology, her specimen classification and field reports are unusually careful. This may reflect a faint evolutionary bias left by hunting and gathering. That kind of life demanded tracking moving targets, reading environmental patterns, and remembering space. Would this push Ada into a particular career? Maybe. Maybe she becomes excellent at the fine motor work of surgery. Maybe she joins geological surveys and reads landscapes with unusual ease. Maybe she becomes an architect or spatial designer. Or maybe she chooses a job no one has imagined yet. No one gets to decide that for her. And that freedom to choose may be one of the most modern things about her. Now we return to the original question. How uncertain is the 300,000-year mark? Quite uncertain. The Jebel Irhoud fossils show early Homo sapiens with faces already close to modern humans, but their brain cases still kept a more ancient shape. Research published in 2018 suggests that the typical rounded brain case of modern humans became common later. So Ada's brain size may overlap with ours, but her skull shape and the proportions of some brain regions may not be exactly the same. That is why the answer is cautious. Ada would probably have the cognitive foundation needed to become modern. The simple tools and symbols of early Homo sapiens were probably not simple because the brain hardware was too weak. More likely, cultural accumulation was limited by small population size, scattered groups, and fragile knowledge transmission. And the most powerful moment in Ada's story might happen when she is 17. In a history class, the teacher shows a reconstruction of a Jebel Irhoud skull. The lesson is about how Homo sapiens evolved in Africa and eventually became us. Ada listens quietly. Then she raises her hand and says, "That is my mother." The whole class thinks she is joking. Only Ada and her foster parents know she is not. So let's return to the real question. What does it mean to be a modern human? From Jebel Irhoud to today, evolution has continued. Skulls became rounder, some genes changed, bodies shifted. But the core architecture of human cognition has remained surprisingly stable across hundreds of thousands of years. What truly makes a baby modern is not only DNA, it is language, writing, numbers, institutions, technology, a whole cultural system that already exists before the child is born. Ada's story is simply the extreme version of that process. Even across 300,000 years, if a baby is connected to that system, she can still grow up inside our world. She can earn the same diploma, lose sleep from the same anxieties, run a little longer than most people, and maybe crave sweets a little more. She would not be a visitor from another species. She would be human, very old, very new, and in the end, very much one of us.